Hello and welcome back to Prime Cutz. This time round we have X, the man with X-ray eyes. I'm not sure it needs the actual extra X in there, but considering this is another film from Roger Corman, who both produces and directs here, it's not surprised he had the extra X in for that eye-catching kind of poster work to try and make it look more salacious than it really was. This is from 1963 and the plot revolves around Dr. James Xavier, or Xavier, of course, with the X, his sort of experiments with a miracle drug that improves people's vision. We have Ray Milliard here as Dr. James Xavier, here getting his eyes examined. He had been a leading man since essentially the 30s, so well into his career and going away very nicely. Here he's having his eyes examined by his friend, who's part of this kind of research to improve vision with it. And here's the doctor kind of talking about all the things he could achieve if he could see more than the 10% wavelength light that the human eye can perceive. So here he is in his lab with Dr. Diane Fairfax, who is his kind of love interest in the film as they're testing things out on some monkeys. He eventually decides to start testing it out on himself because, crazy scientists must do crazy things to propel science fiction film plot forward. And he starts to be able to sort of see through things. Here's the research kind of backing board discussing progress so far. They don't really want to continue backing the project. Here we have James being able to see through his bandages. We then cut to a party a little bit later on. And I love 60s dancing. You just had to kind of wave your limbs around in all sorts of random directions. I wish it was still like this. This young lady starts to make a move on James, who can now do the classic X-ray thing of see through people's clothes. So he takes a moment to sort of perv a little bit on Diane, which is a little bit creepy, and he actually comes up with some fairly creepy lines whilst he's doing that, but she seems to go for it. Here he's about to go into a surgery with a patient where he's kind of discovered some more tumours that the main doctor doesn't think is there. So he actually takes over the surgery, causes a bit of a kerfuffle, and whilst he does save the patient, the chief, or sort of the head surgeon here, does threaten him with a malpractice suit because he's basically kind of taken over this operation. So we go back to kind of discussing the rights and wrongs of this medication. James wants to keep taking it, his friend doesn't. They have a bit of a kerfuffle and he's thrown out of a window. So, James runs away and he ends up kind of hiding out at a fairground where he's become or he's pitched himself up as a kind of novelty mind reading act, at this fair where he gets people to write down, thoughts on a piece of paper, and then he claims to sort of put them to his head and read them because, of course, he can see through his bandage. I love the outfit he's developed for himself here with the kind of eye on the bandage and this wonderful silk sort of dressing gown that he's got going on. These two guys don't believe him at first. I think there's some kind of trick, but he eventually kind of gets the better of them. The sort of guy running the fairground, kind of cottons onto there's other ways we can make money with this. And the other fairground entertainers kind of talk about him and how it seems to actually be a special power rather than just a trick, because obviously all of their kind of stuff is based on tricks. Throughout the film we get these kind of lovely point of view shots. Eventually there is an incident at the fair which causes him to run away again, but this time he's convinced to set up a kind of backstreet medical practice because he can look into kind of people's bodies and spot where they've got tumours or things wrong with their heart, or if they've got sort of blockages in blood vessels or whatever. I like the touch that he's nearly always now wearing these wraparound sunglasses, and it is a bit confusing though, because his kind of vision powers seem to come and go. There's an idea that it kind of fades if he doesn't take the medication for periods, but it's not made very clear. Sometimes it seems to be fading, sometimes not. There's not a lot of consistency to it. But then this is a very pulpy science fiction film, so that kind of element is not really something it's worried about. Eventually Diana tracks him down to where he's running his kind of shady medical practice, and she goes to kind of try and talk him around to letting her help him get his sight back to normal. But it's not something that he is interested in, because now he's becoming the mad scientist. He wants to keep on going. He wants to sort of push through and learn to control his vision powers. But he needs funding to keep being able to experiment and develop things. So they end up basically running away from the shady character that he's got into business with for this medical practice. And yeah, they dart off, and they decide that what they can do is head off to Vegas, where of course he can go into casinos and use his powers to essentially kind of cheat and get wins. So the first thing they do is they walk up to some of the one-armed bandit machines, because he can sort of see through the plate of the machine and see which ones are about to give out, basically which ones are about to award prizes. So he then settles in at a blackjack table where he can sort of see through the cards that the dealer has, so he knows whether to hit, miss, what is being played with. So he keeps betting bigger and bigger and bigger and winning all the time. And of course eventually the casino becomes suspicious of him, particularly when he starts telling the players around him what they should be doing as well. So they kind of chase him off, and as you can see, like his eyes are getting weirder and weirder and crazier, because now he's got some cool cold contacts. So as he's chased out of the casino, he opts straight for vehicular theft and goes herring off. He's getting more and more disorientated because his vision just kind of won't settle back to normal. He's more and more anguished and unsettled, and his mental state is kind of deteriorating as he sort of careers around on the road, almost driving into various people. And then eventually he loses control of the car, ends up coming off the road and kind of plunging, I guess, off the cliff, kind of not quite a cliff, but off the hillside here. He staggers out of his car, and then he kind of staggers around the kind of desert for a little while, and eventually he stumbles across a kind of church. I don't know why there's kind of this church in a tent that's kind of been pushed out in the Nevada desert area. Anyway, he stumbles in. The preacher is giving a sermon, quite a dark, disturbing sermon. He's kind of pleading for help and asking what he should do, and the preacher comes out with a line about the edges of the universe and the eye that sees us all. And eventually James decides to basically, out of distress, pluck his own eyes out. And there we go. That was the adventures of X, the man with X-ray eyes. A quick kind of sordid little adventure. It's only about 80 minutes long, so it's a nice quick one, but it is quite good fun, and it's that very kind of high campy science fiction of the 60s that is delivered with the straightest of straight faces, which just makes it all the more fun. It's not nearly as salacious as Roger Corman would have to make you believe, but yeah, this is a fun little one to catch. Yeah, join us again soon for some more Prime Cutz as we dig up some more oddities and things in there, and we'll probably find another Roger Corman one floating around.